All right, good. I'm so rude. Let me fire up my screen here.
If I remember correctly,
Yes, sir.
today's focus is on. I don't mind
I'm
me
going to
saying.
give you the lowdown before we get started.
Okay.
I'm actually I'm going to send you a schedule here later this week, Charles,
Okay.
because I know that just coordinating the releases and the notes for these shows is hard. So I'm setting up a much more deliberate schedule for these things. So I'll send you my schedule for the next 3 hangouts or so later, a couple days from now. So
Sweet.
my estimated schedule. But my estimated schedule for today is to review the game in progress. That is uh, folder 3, which is 3 game, which is the game itself. This is where you're going to go to look at the code that is the final game. You can look at the exploration directory, you can look at the other directories, that's cool. But the one we're working on from now on together is 3 game under I can make that desktop games top-down shooter. And of course, as always, there's going to be a download link with the show notes so people can just get the folder, and this is where you'll start. So look in the 3 game folder, and that's where we're working today. Today I'm going to do a very quick review of the game Lua file because there's been a small change to make things much simpler for folks. I'm trying to break everything up into tiny chunks so they can take a look at just the small chunks. Makes it easier for us to talk to. Then we're going to talk about terrain rendering very quickly. And then we're going to move into player creation and movement and the camera. So today's goal is to come out of here understanding how we create a player, how we move the player, and how the camera works. So before we jump into the project, actually, let's go ahead and jump into the project. And you get to see my new fancy environment here. I really like Zero Brain too because it's got this feature where you can just switch between projects in one click, which is really cool. So I used to have to keep a zillion projects open, and then I would always lose track of which one was on which desktop. Now I can just switch between projects and not have to worry about having all those editors open.
Does it save the state of all your tabs?
It saves the state of everything. Everything goes back exactly the way it was, which has always been my problem because I'll accidentally close an editor and lose my state. And I'm like, what files did I have? Where was I? What was I doing? Ugh. So can you read this code okay? Is it big enough?
I think so. It probably could be a little bigger, but I don't know what.
Okay, let's make it a little bit bigger because we got
If you can
plenty of
make it
room.
bigger. Yeah, if you can make it.
So I'm only going to say this one more time for this show only. When you launch this game, when you are looking at this code, start in main Lua. Main Lua is very short. Basically, you can just zip to the end of the file and see, okay, what's going on? What's going on is I am requiring the game.lua file, and then I'm calling a function on it called create. From there, you should really just jump right into game.lua and take a look at what is different from week to week. Now, what's different this week is big in that I have simplified this file a lot so that in future weeks, all you have to do is say, oh, there's one line of change here, and then I go look at another file, instead of having a lot of changes within this file. So one other note is as I go along, I will continue to clean things up and make them more beautiful, hopefully, and better documented for folks so they can just more easily grok this. So this is a live project that will hopefully just get better and better for you to understand. But Game Lua is a module. I use my typical public module creation here. I just create a table, and then I will attach things to it. I'm going to run through this really fast. What I've done here is I've broken out all of the makers and the managers. So you got makers or builders, which are modules that create content for the game. And then there are managers that are modules that are responsible for managing content or doing some kind of active thing. So for example, the camera manager's job is to keep the things in the right place on the screen so you can see them. It's an active module doing something to the game. Whereas makers generally just produce something and then you use them more like a tool. So they're going to be used by other parts of the games to do work. So the makers in this file so far are the layer maker, which is a module for creating the layers that we looked at last week: underlay, overlay, content, world, all of those display layers that we're going to use to keep things correctly rendering on top of each other, below each other. Debug Maker, which is sort of my catch-all for this game development, where I'm going to put tools in here so I can show you some specific content. So this is really not important so much as just so you know it's there. It's something I'm using to show you a topic of the week. Like this week's topic is the camera, and you'll see what Debug Maker does for that. Ground Maker, just what it sounds like, it makes the ground. Reticle Maker makes our reticle. And Player Maker makes our player. If you zoom down into this, almost all of these are going to have the same structure. They're going to have a destroy function and a create function. They may have some others, but almost all the Maker modules and Game module will have these two functions. And then almost always, create will call destroy first. And the job of destroy, this is something that's very important to understand, is in any of the makers, the job of the destroy may not be anything. It may not actually remove any content. I have created that method as a place where if I need to do some cleanup, that is where I'll do it. So for example, let's say I have a module that needs to track some variables locally within the module, but I want them all clean when I load the next level. Then anything I need cleaned would go into the destroy. Whereas all the content that I created will be destroyed as soon as I remove the groups. So in game, I destroy, where is it? Oh, you don't have stuff that we're not doing. I'm sorry. In the, let me find it. Layer Maker, where are you? In Layer Maker, when I switch levels, which we're not doing yet, I will call the destroy method or function, and it will destroy all of the groups, all the display layers, and that will destroy all of the content in our game, all the display objects. So what I'm saying here is the destroy functions in all of the other makers, they don't destroy the content they made. They just do cleanup locally on that module if anything needs to be done. Most of them don't do anything. Player Maker doesn't do anything. Reticle Maker doesn't have any cleanup to do because it doesn't have any state. It doesn't have any concept of there's something specific I did I need to clean up. However, the Camera Manager has something that it needs to do. It needs to detach itself from the content it was watching and be prepared in a moment to look at something else and start tracking it. We're going to talk about that today. Okay, so again, there's a destroy function, a create function. We looked at these last week, but I just wanted to point out that all the modules are going to start using this sort of nomenclature, this sort of construction. So the difference, the big difference you're going to notice this week is it's very much simpler. In here we call destroy, then I use the layers maker to create the layers. Last week this was all in this code, I took it out. Then I used the ground maker to draw the background of the ground. Again, this is all in the code previously, but now it's in its own module. And that is nice because this is the module right here for the ground. 55 lines of code that you can easily look at and understand separately for how the ground is drawn. Now, our ground still is very basic. It's just a checkerboard with one texture. But the point is the more we change it, it only changes in this module, so you don't have to say, well, how did that affect the game module? It didn't. And then we create the reticle, again with a maker, and the player with a maker. Then I set up my debug output and attach the camera, and then I detach it, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But I attach the camera to the player, and the game is running. At that point, if I start the game running, where's my, there it is, a little bit weird, sorry, still getting used to this. If I start the game running, there's my guy walking around, the camera is tracking him, everything looks cool. So that was the first part of what I wanted to show you. Now before